Today's podcast is brought to you by Jakara Wrestling Factory, 4711 Wingate Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, specializing in lucha libre, puro, European, British, and German styles, mixed martial arts, and American pro wrestling in their curriculum at the Wrestle Factory, striving to create the most well-rounded performers active today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Fro Wrestling Podcast. In this episode, we're going to talk about all the happenings in the wrestling scene. Before we get started, make sure you hit subscribe at the bottom of the page here. We're trying to put out new content as much as possible, and we don't want to miss any of the latest news and rumors getting to you on time. So by all means, please hit a subscribe, give us a like, and let's grow our audience. Let's get started with this day in pro wrestling history. 32 years ago, monumental day in the history of professional wrestling. It was on MTV. They launched the War to Settle the Score, which, for anyone who doesn't know this story already, in 1985, WWF was poised to make a huge leap in the pro wrestling world, and they did so with the use of MTV as a vehicle and celebrity involvement for the first time in a huge way in professional wrestling. This card saw this iconic clash between Rowdy Roddy Piper and then WWF World Heavyweight Champion Hulk Hogan. It was broadcast around the world on MTV. They had all these celebrities get involved. Dick Clark was there as a special announcer. Cyndi Lauper was at ringside. Mr. T was in the crowd. David Wolf, Cyndi Lauper's manager, was there. There was all these people there to really generate a buzz. And what ended up happening was the main event saw Roddy Piper and Hulk Hogan really have a classic match of the style that they typically have with each other. But towards the end of the match, you see Bob Orton, Ace Orton, Roddy Piper's sidekick. He had his arm in a cast, that cast that he wore for years and years, got it slammed on a turnbuckle, and he had to go to the back. And Paul Orndorff came out to take Cowboy Bob's place at Roddy Piper's side during the match. And towards the end of the match, the referee takes a bad bump, takes a spill, and as that's going on, Orton and Piper jump in and do this double team where they're attacking Hulk Hogan. This led to Cyndi Lauper jumping the guardrail, climbing up onto the ring apron, and trying to get him to stop beating up Hulk Hogan. So while he's over there recovering, Mr. T jumps the other guardrail and comes up to the ring and tries to get her off the apron because Piper and Orndorff are getting ready to attack Cyndi Lauper. As he gets her down, they challenged Mr. T to get into the ring, which, of course, Mr. T, tough guy on television at the time, doing the A-team thing, he ends up getting into the ring and gets completely attacked and annihilated by Piper and Orton for a few moments until Hulk Hogan makes his big recovery. And then it's funny, if you go back and watch it back again, you can see where Mr. T was obviously not a professional wrestler of any kind, and you could see where he wanted to go in and do the attack thing and go after him. You could see Hulk Hogan a couple times put his left hand out and just grab Mr. T by the chest, and he's like, wait, not yet. You know, you could see it's one of the first times as a child I really could see the choreography of how wrestling's matches are put together. You could see he held him back until that exact moment where Piper and Orndorff stepped out of the ring and they were clear of danger, and then all of a sudden they charge in like they were going to attack him, and they miss him, and it sets up the build to the very first WrestleMania, which, as everyone knows, WrestleMania became the cultural icon of sports entertainment programming, and it all started with the War to Settle the Score. We couldn't have WrestleMania today as we do without the War to Settle the Score. There would be no Undertaker streak. There would be no Money in the Bank ladder match, pay-per-views or matches. There would be none of that stuff. Think of how many careers have been launched because of WrestleMania, and WrestleMania is what it is because Vince McMahon was brilliant enough to take a chance on something that had never been done before and make it work. A lot of people argue that because there had been a Starrcade in 83 and in 84, but Starrcade never hit the mass media appeal audience that the WrestleMania did. The NWA put together great shows in 83 and 84. All the top stars came in and performed in great ways. But the problem is that they never brought in outside media attention. And WWE did that awesome. You know, at the first WrestleMania, you ended up seeing people like Liberace out there and Bob Uecker and like all these people just being a part of the show. The Rockettes doing the thing and Muhammad Ali being a referee. It was huge. And he brought together all this premium talent. They closed circuit television broadcasted it around the world. I myself was in the Philadelphia Spectrum at the time, watching it on closed circuit television. I remember one of the big things my mom told me as my dad and I were leaving to go to the show was, I just want to see if Andre the Giant slams Big Don Studd. And when we got there, the part where Andre picks up Studd, I picked up my camera, and as I took a picture, I will never forget that I got the perfect picture of the guy in front of me's back as he stood up cheering because Andre slammed John Studd. I actually kept that stupid picture for quite a long time because of the funny story that goes along with it, but would not have gotten started without the war to settle the score. 28 years ago today, there was a loss in the wrestling world, very sad loss of female wrestling icon Mildred Burke. She passed away at the age of 73 in 1989. Mildred Burke is a woman who, she carried women's wrestling for a very long time, creating a women's pro wrestling circuit that had not previously been there. She did classic battles with various people all throughout the 50s and 60s. She ended up retiring, I want to say, in like 1966 or so, and her contributions are huge. She ran a wrestling school to train female wrestlers. People like Fabulous Moolah and Mae Young, who went on to have amazing careers. I don't know that either one of them would have been nearly as successful without the contributions of Mildred Burke. So, sad day in wrestling history. 3 years ago, today's kind of a theme. 3 years ago, Nelson Frazier Jr., also known as Viscera, Big Daddy V, Mabel from Men on a Mission, King Mabel, whatever you want to remember him as, died at the age of 43 due to a heart attack. This is one that kind of, I guess I shouldn't say took me by surprise. You always expect people with larger frames that they, for some reason, as sad as it is, they don't always make it as long. But this guy, he seemed to really be coming into his own on the independent scene. He had recently left World Wrestling Entertainment. He was doing his own thing. And I really enjoyed his work as a huge performer. He had a nimbleness to him. He had a style. He looked tough. He just wasn't just a big, heavy guy. He was tough, and he was believable. So, another sad day. And 24 years ago, the passing of one of the most important people in the Von Erich family, Kerry Von Erich, the Texas Tornado, when he was in WWE, passed away from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. This was the culmination of just such a sad story for the Von Erich family, having lost so many brothers to various things. David Von Erich was the first one. He passed away in Japan. We listed that on a previous podcast. He had a brother named Mike Von Erich who took his own life. Chris Von Erich, I'm sorry, Mike Von Erich did not. Mike Von Erich, well, yeah, he did actually. What am I thinking? Mike Von Erich passed away. Chris Von Erich, his brother, passed away, and then Kerry. The one that I feel for the most is Kevin, the lone brother who's still remaining. To see all your brothers just come to an early demise, just heart-wrenching. And Kerry Von Erich, of all the Von Erich boys, had the most exposure. He was really the most over talent in the family. David Von Erich probably had the most skill in the ring as a technician, but Kerry Von Erich had just this infectious enthusiasm. He had this somewhat awkward but inviting smile. He seemed just like a regular everyday good dude, and somebody you enjoyed watching. Again, I remember being at the Spectrum in Philadelphia watching at SummerSlam as he beat Mr. Perfect for the Intercontinental title and being so excited because I used to be a fan of World Class Championship Wrestling on ESPN, and seeing this World Class Championship Wrestling star come to WWE and instantly get the Intercontinental title, I really thought his career was ready to take off. His career stumbled and fizzled in WWE, went straight downhill, and eventually was released, went into the independents, and that's where I guess the frustrations and the abuse of narcotics and things got the better of him. And it's really a shame because he was such an amazing talent. A lot of people didn't even realize right in the middle of his career, he had a tragic motorcycle accident where he had to have one of his feet amputated below the ankle, and he still continued performing with a prosthetic inside of a boot. And a lot of people didn't even know that. You couldn't see a lot of it. A lot of wrestlers on different documentaries have said, his performance changed. You couldn't tell if you were a casual fan or a child like myself at the time. You just couldn't see that. What you saw was an awesome talent, a really cool guy, and another one of those ones that's sad that we lost way too young. Today's news, like I said, we got this theme going this week. The tragic passing of the Russian bear Ivan Koloff at the age of 74 due to complications from liver disease. This is a tough one for me. Ivan Koloff, he portrays like this tough guy character on NWA programming all throughout the 80s. The Koloffs running the tag team scene for quite a long time. The introduction of Nikita Koloff, who became one of my favorite wrestlers back when I was a child. Ivan Koloff was actually really big. And I remember going to the Philadelphia Civic Center the one time, and I saw a match put on there, and it was it was really one of those things where I still believe that these people lived the lives that they portrayed on television at the time. I want to say this is probably 1986, 85, 86. I was a young kid at the time. And I'll never forget, after the matches, my father took me to the Marriott Hotel in Philadelphia, right next to the International Airport, and Ivan Koloff was there in the lobby signing countless autographs for little kids. And it blew my mind. And he wasn't talking like the Russian character I see on TV. And it was like a real introduction into what really goes on in the wrestling world. And he was so nice, and he was so gentle, and he was so welcoming and so friendly. And I've had a lot of those interactions with different wrestlers over the years, but that one in particular, especially today with this sad news, it hits you in the heart a little bit, because he was such a good guy. It's sad to see him go. Going to move into some TNA news. TNA Wrestling, or Impact Wrestling, and Nick Aldis, also known as Magnus, former world champion, who at one point in 2015 looked like his stock value was just skyrocketing. His tenure there came to an end, and now they are in serious contract talks about him making a return to the company. And this is a bittersweet thing for me. I'm happy to see Magnus come back if he does. The problem for me is, with Mickie James going to WWE and signing a 3-year deal, I was really hoping that WWE would sign him and bring him in. I love Magnus as a character. I think he's a fantastic wrestler. They really missed the boat with him when Dixie Carter really started driving the truck, or driving the steering wheel in TNA, and really messed the things up over the last year and a half or so. And they lost out on him. He walked away on his own terms. He decided he wanted to go elsewhere. It came down to money. They didn't want to pay him what he felt his star value was worth at the time. And I have to be honest with you, I agree, because they lost a lot of stars at that time. That's when AJ Styles left, and Joe, and people like that. And I think they really missed an opportunity here, because they had just built up a ton of momentum for Magnus, and then to just pull the rug out from under him, they kind of relegated him to a tag team situation, and then he ended up leaving. This would be a fresh start for him. He's been gone long enough that it would be a really interesting reintroduction to the fans. There's matches there now that weren't there before that he could do that he's never done before. Stuff like going against Aaron Rex and going against Drew Galloway and Lashley. All these pairings that weren't there before. So maybe something gets done here. Either way, I think you'll see solid matches from Magnus if he goes back to TNA. If not, I really hope WWE makes an overture to him before this happens, because they're missing out on a great talent. Unless they're looking to take him on later in his career, but tired of waiting until somebody's 35 years old to bring him to WWE, like Joe, like AJ, people like that. I really want to see people starting to get there sooner than later. On the topic of Impact Wrestling, Jeff Jarrett had a huge comment this week saying that 2016 was a black eye on the industry when it comes to the way Dixie Carter handled TNA Wrestling. And I can't argue with that. I don't think there was a week that went by last year that TNA fans weren't concerned about, where's the company going? Are they going to shut down? Are they going to get a new TV deal? Do they even have enough money to run television tapings? And he's right. This was an absolute black eye in the industry when it comes to TNA Wrestling. Hopefully, with him being back in charge, someone who has wrestling experience and a passion for the business, maybe they'll be moving in a much more positive direction. AJ Styles also had comments about TNA this week, saying that TNA completely flattened his ego at the end, because Dixie Carter wanted TNA to be like WWE Light. She didn't see the star power on the roster that he saw, that they saw within themselves. People like Samoa Joe and Low Ki and Christopher Daniels, etc., etc. They all had a desire to turn TNA into something really special. And instead of doing that, they just wanted to be WWE Light. They wanted to be, big enough to have a huge enough audience to make it profitable on the networks that they were on. But at no point did they see themselves as a serious contender to WWE. And maybe that's what held them back. Because if anything is being proven now, all these talents that came from TNA to go to WWE are doing extremely well. And that just tells you how much they could have done had they marketed themselves a little differently in TNA. TNA could be a player right now. Instead, there is a glorified independent promotion that happens to have a TV deal that runs out at the end of the year. So we'll have to see how they progress now that you've got Jeff Jarrett back in at the reins. But the missed opportunities, it's really sad. AJ Styles in that same interview, and it's been reported on all the outlets, he referenced the amazing treatment he received from both Ring of Honor and New Japan when they made him out to be a superstar. And when you hear him say that, you're like, yeah, of course you are. But TNA obviously didn't. If he was a superstar, the money and the booking and the appearance per appearance rate, or whatever they used in the matrix to determine the contract offers that they made to him, clearly was not of the same level. And the way he was treated respect-wise clearly wasn't on the same level or he wouldn't have left TNA after being there since its inception. It just tells you how much sometimes, despite how much talent you have in any of these promotions, because Vince McMahon is guilty of this too. If you have all this talent, sometimes there's that phrase, you're too close to the forest to see the trees. And TNA and Dixie Carter obviously didn't realize the amazing star power of AJ Styles, which is a shame because they missed out, again, just like Magnus. They missed out on promoting AJ in another huge situation. Moving on, Brock Lesnar. He's supposed to be doing a house show in Dallas. He's supposed to wrestle the Big Show, but made a surprise appearance coming out of the ring and just totally dismantling 8 guys with his suplexes and his F5. Everybody from Titus O'Neil to like Bo Dallas and the Shining Stars and anybody else they decided to throw out there at any given moment just because they had nothing else for him to do on the card. But at the end of the day, at least these guys got out there and got an appearance. Unfortunately, it was to get annihilated by Brock Lesnar. It's kind of strange to see the way they book him with these independent, or I shouldn't say independent, but these house shows where he's making these spot appearances, and you know that those are eating up appearances. They're on his contract, his $5 million a year contract. So I guess if you're WWE, you're using him to maximize the number of times you can generate revenue using him, but you would think they'd want to use more of him on television if that was the case. Put him on SmackDown every once in a while. Have him show up and just annihilate somebody just for the sake of boosting ratings, you know? We'll have to see how things shake out with him after WrestleMania, but I'll tell you what, if Bray Wyatt walks out world champion, I would love to see a Bray Wyatt Brock Lesnar face off at some point. We never got that addressed last year, not this year, but last year at the Royal Rumble when the Wyatt family knocked him out of the Royal Rumble. So it'd be really cool to see them relive that at some point going forward in the future. Perhaps after Bray loses the World Championship at whatever time he does that, do a cross-branded thing. Maybe it's Survivor Series. There's my fantasy booking of the day, Brock and Bray at Survivor Series, but we'll have to see how that goes. Moving on, Samoa Joe is now rumored to be facing Sami Zayn at Fastlane instead of the Jericho United States Championship match. I could see how with the attack on Chris Jericho by Kevin Owens this week on Raw, how they could write Jericho off television long enough to get past Fastlane to save the United States Championship for the WrestleMania match, if they want to go that route. It seems kind of strange you would have a Universal Champion kind of take a step down to the B-level championship, but if that's what they want to do, so be it. Obviously, if that happens, if the title is on the line at the WrestleMania pay-per-view, you would think that Jericho would have to lose there because he's going to be leaving in May, unless you have him retain there and then lose it at another point to somebody else. But at some point you would think that Kevin Owens, being the established and going to be in the spotlight for a long time star, would have to go over Jericho at some point. And you would think the biggest show of the year would be the place to do that, unless they want to do the respectful thing and give Jericho the win at WrestleMania, have him drop a match to Kevin Owens the next month and then leave the company. But again, they're so fluid with their planning here in WWE. So Joe versus Zayn at Fastlane is the rumored match. So you can see where they set that up this past week on Raw. Should be a great match. I mean, I can't wait to see that. Cage Side Seats is reporting that Finn Balor is being advertised for pre-WrestleMania house shows, which is a huge indicator that he's going to be ready to go in time for Mania. If that's the case, they do not have a ton of time to get him perfectly strategically positioned for a high-profile match at Mania. A lot of people have been saying in the previous weeks that they don't think he's going to make it to WrestleMania, that they're going to hold him off the show and just have him make an appearance. Horrible idea. We've been waiting for this for too long. You gave him the Universal title. He's ready to come back. You get him out there. I want to see the look on all those people's faces at WrestleMania when he walks out to his music and he calls to the crowd. This is the opportunity for a moniker and career-defining WrestleMania moment, and I think they need to take advantage of that. Speaking of WrestleMania, Baron Corbin had a really interesting interview. I first read it at eWrestlingNews.com, where he talked about how he would welcome a match with Braun Strowman at WrestleMania, which I love the idea of an interpromotional match. You've got these two rival television shows or brands or whatever you want to call it. You need to have at least one match on a WrestleMania card where they go at each other. And I don't mean the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. You don't get to develop any kind of storyline in that Battle Royal. So it would be really cool to see these two monster heels, big, tough guys, really go at it and do battle at WrestleMania. I would welcome that match. Unfortunately, I think he's going to be put in a match with Dean Ambrose, and I actually think he's going to go over Dean Ambrose and take the Intercontinental title, but I would much rather see the Braun Strowman match, especially since neither of them have a match booked on the card that, or at least is thought to be booked for the card, that has huge significance or meaning. On the mixed martial arts front, last night was Bellator 172 on Spike TV. I'm going to throw this out there. Josh Koscheck, he's one of the most recognizable faces in mixed martial arts, former UFC champion, and he falls to Mauricio Alonso. I mean, it's time for Koscheck to hang up the gloves. It's too much. The guy has had a really up and down career, and in recent times he's not the same fighter he used to be. The biggest disappointment coming out of last night is the big hype for the show was the Matt Mitrone versus Fedor Emelianenko match, and it didn't even happen. Mitrone has been hospitalized due to a medical issue, and the match has got to be postponed. And it was really nice to see Fedor come out and address the fans and be so gracious and assure them that at some point in the future they'll get this fight rescheduled so that they can deliver the entertainment to the fans that they paid to see. So I really appreciated his acumen and his professionalism in that. And I think that's part of why he never made it to UFC. He really is a great negotiator, and he understands the importance of his audience. And I think that UFC, that may be somewhat intimidating to them. We're going to switch to the independent news. First off, in AAA, the AAA promotion in Mexico has now put Vampiro in head of as the new director of talent acquisition. That's huge. Vampiro, for those who don't remember, was in WCW back in the late 90s. He was an amazing lucha talent, came to North America for a short period of time, had some great feuds with like Sting and stuff like that. He's been doing work for Lucha Underground now for an extended period of time. Love his work there as well. But he really does have a great eye for talent. It'll be interesting to see how he's able to bring in some talent to AAA to help boost that brand. It's kind of seen a little bit of a drop-off recently with so many of their stars not signing contracts and being able to contract out to other promotions, changing their names and stuff. So hopefully Vampiro can lend some stability to that. CJ Parker, who was formerly in NXT and WWE, left the promotion a couple years ago to go to New Japan Pro Wrestling. And he had an interview out this week I saw on Cage Side Seats where he was talking about, the reason he left. And the reason he left was they had their first NXT special, and he wasn't booked on the card. And he was sitting there seeing people like not Samoa Joe, I apologize, that was a little bit afterwards, but Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Finn Balor, all these guys show up and go to the main roster ahead of him, and he had been spending so much time there. And he felt like at the first big NXT special, even if it was just to put somebody over, he wanted to be on the card, and he wasn't booked on the event at all. And he took that as a personal slap in the face, and that was when he made the decision to go to New Japan. And to be honest with you, if you pay attention to the New Japan specials that are on Access TV, he's done a great job in Japan. No, he's not a superstar, he's not a mega star, but he definitely is entertaining. He's got a great moveset, and he really breathes some cool character life into their programming. So good for CJ Parker, one of the people who left WWE for all the right reasons and has made it very successful on the independent scene without WWE's pushing. This weekend was the AAW Art of War event, and I'm just going to run down the results of the card. These guys have been putting on some really great shows lately. Chuck Taylor and Trent Beretta, known as the Best Friends, defeated Davey Vega and Matt Fitchett, who are the besties in the world. I cannot even believe I just said that out loud. The Best Friends versus the besties. Like, really? Who books this stuff? Zema Ion, who is quickly becoming one of my favorite wrestlers in all of professional wrestling, defeated Connor Braxton. Matt Riddle defeated Jason Kincaid. I actually really like Jason Kincaid. I've seen him on various independent promotions. I really wish he would get a shot, maybe in an NXT. Trevor Lee defeated Matt Sydal. It was a singles match, but the tag team championship was on the line anyways. Trevor Lee's tag team partner was not there. Trevor Lee defended against Sydal. If whoever won, I guess they would be putting the other tag team strap on their partner. And Trevor Lee retained, so that didn't change anything. Low Key, thankfully, he's come back to the wrestling world with more consistency, is now making more appearances, defeated El Hijo del Fantasma, a great lucha star coming up from Mexico. Michael Elgin and Brian Cage, the Unbreakable Effin' Machines, defeated Desmond Xavier and Zachary Wentz. Abyss of TNA fame defeated Eddie Kingston. ACH, AR Fox, and Phoenix defeated Sami Zayn and the Killer Cult in a 6-man tag team match. It saw Phoenix pin Sami Callihan, who was on the side with the Killer Cult, who is the AAW World Heavyweight Champion. So this opens up an opportunity in the future for Phoenix to get a shot at the championship against Sami Callihan, which would mean a whole lot more to me if they didn't have Callahan lose to a female wrestler only about 2 weeks ago. Just saying. Last night was also Pro Wrestling Guerrilla held one of their cards, Only Kings Understand Each Other show. Again, because they bounce around to so many promotions over the weekend. You had Trevor Lee defeat Cody Rhodes. There's a really awkward part where Trevor Lee is like, you want to think he's just working through what his personality is supposed to do, and he shouted something to the effect of F Dusty, and that really upset Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes is a very sensitive guy. He obviously had an amazing relationship with his father, and he takes his father's reputation. He makes that pretty much the top of his priority list, and Cody got very upset. Since that happened, they've gone on Twitter, and Cody has taken blame, saying it's his fault for not telling Trevor that's like his cardinal rule is not to use his father's name to get any cheap heat in his matches. And apparently the two have patched things up and they're good to go. But it's blows my mind that we even had to talk about that. Some guy named Trent, and I don't have the last name, defeated Ray Phoenix. Ray Phoenix, I don't know what he's doing putting over talents that he shouldn't be, but whatever. Matt Riddle and Jeff Cobb defeated Michael Elgin and Brian Cage. Again, the same unbreakable effing machines from the previous show going in here and doing the job to Matt Riddle and Jeff Cobb. Jeff Cobb, again, if you don't remember, is Montanza Cueto over in Lucha Underground. Ricochet defeated Leo Rush. Awesome match. Marty Scurll defeated Jay White. It's amazing to me when you see these guys doing AAW, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. Some of them are on Ring of Honor, Lucha Underground, New Japan. Like, all those promotions all represented right here in one show. Amazing. You got to see Super Click, which might as well, I don't know why they have names for every promotion they're in. The Super Click of Adam Cole and the Young Bucks, also known as the Bullet Club, defeating Sami Callihan, David Christ, and Jake Christ in a 6-man tag team match. So I'm not surprised there. You got 3 of Ring of Honor's top talents going over. Sami Callihan dropping 2 6-man tag matches in a row over the weekend. Just little strange for me. Main event sees Zack Sabre Jr. defeating Chuck Taylor to retain the Pro Wrestling Guerrilla World Championship. After the match is over, though, Sabre Jr. he goes heel. He teams up with Marty Scurll and they do a total beatdown on Chuck Taylor. Trent ended up coming out to make the save, but at the end of the day, I don't know how I feel about Zack Sabre Jr. being a heel. It's not something I have fully embraced yet. I really like his character as a face, but we'll see how that plays out. Your look-back match for this episode from Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling in 1982. Look up Jake Roberts versus Roddy Piper. And you know who those people are. That would be Jake the Snake Roberts against Roddy Piper long before their WWF successes. Roddy Piper had a great career in the NWA before coming to WWE. Jake Roberts, a serviceable career in the Mid-South and territories like that, hanging out with Bill Watts and things. But these two certainly were not on the level that they eventually got to when they were in World Wrestling Entertainment. But check that match out. Very entertaining. As always, people, please give us reviews, give us subscribes, thumbs up, wherever you can, wherever you're listening to this podcast. We really want to see our audience grow. We're at our highest subscriber rate since the inception of the show, and we want to keep that trending upwards. So thank you, everyone who already contributes to that initiative. And I can't tell you how much it means that I keep getting all these great comments and feedback on the different episodes, and that's all, you guys' effort. That's not me, that's you guys. So thank you so much for that. That's all the time we have for this episode, but check back with us in episode 25, where we're going to review all the happenings on Raw and SmackDown, some projections for WrestleMania, since we're getting so much closer to the show. Special thanks, as always, go out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all the music and sound effects used throughout today's show. The podcast today was sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this new game from Beazle Games and bring some fun and excitement back to family game night by going to www.thegamecrafter.com/sketchypeople to pick up your copy today, and to alleyrepair.com. Contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all your classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade needs. alleyrepair.com. High quality workmanship for you and your skee-ball machines. Don't let them lie around in the basement collecting dust. Use alleyrepair.com today to get those old machines up and working again. We want to thank you for listening to today's podcast. We encourage you to go to our website at www.frolifeplanning.com to learn more about what Mr. Fro can do for you in your path to higher education. Remember, Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro, and I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today. We look forward to discussing more current events and rumors on our next show. Till then, so long, everybody.